The sky was overcast, and the air felt thick with tension. Sophie tugged at her mom's coat, her voice trembling with worry. "Mom, I can't find Max anywhere." Her heart pounded as she spoke. Max, their golden retriever, had been her loyal companion since she was 5 years old. He was the kind of dog that never left her side. But today, Max had vanished. Her mom's brow furrowed. "Are you sure? Did you check the backyard?" Sophie nodded quickly, her face pale with fear. Together, they scoured the house from top to bottom. No Max. Sophie's mom walked out the front door, calling his name, but there was nothing but the sound of the wind rustling the leaves. Max was gone, and Sophie's heart sank. How could this have happened? Earlier that morning, everything had seemed normal. Max had bounded out of bed, tail wagging furiously, eager for breakfast. Sophie poured his kibble into the bowl and smiled as he licked her face with gratitude. "Good boy," she said, patting his head. Sophie and Max had their usual morning routine, a short walk around the neighborhood before she headed off to school. They passed the same streets, greeted the same neighbors, and enjoyed the quiet rhythm of the early hours. But something was different that day. Max had seemed restless, his nose constantly sniffing the air, his ears twitching at every sound. He pulled harder on his leash than usual, almost as if he was searching for something, though Sophie didn't think much of it. Later, when Sophie came home from school, she expected to be greeted by Max's excited barking at the door, but there was only silence. Puzzled, she called out, "Max, where are you?" Her mom glanced up from the kitchen, but when Max didn't come bounding down the stairs, Sophie's confusion turned to panic. They searched every room, the backyard, his favorite napping spots, but Max had simply vanished. Sophie felt tears prick her eyes. "Mom, he's never done this before. What if something happened to him?" Her mom tried to stay calm. "Maybe he just wandered off a little farther than usual. Let's go look around the neighborhood." Sophie's heart raced as they walked down the street, calling his name. "Max! Max!" The familiar houses felt strangely different without Max trotting beside her. Neighbors hadn't seen him either, which made Sophie's worry grow. It was as if the whole world had suddenly become a little bit lonelier without him. As the afternoon wore on, Sophie's mom suggested they take a break. "Let's go home for a little while. We'll call the animal shelters, and I'll post online to see if anyone has seen him." But Sophie couldn't sit still. She walked out to the backyard and plopped down on the grass, trying to calm her nerves. "Where are you, Max?" she whispered, wiping away her tears. Just then, she heard it. A bark. It was faint, but unmistakable. Her heart leaped with hope. Could it be? She jumped to her feet, her eyes scanning the horizon. Another bark, this time louder. "Mom!" Sophie shouted, running towards the sound. Her mom followed quickly behind as they hurried toward the park at the edge of town. And there, under the large oak tree, was Max, wagging his tail as if nothing had happened. But Max wasn't alone. Beside him was a little girl no older than 6, her eyes red from crying. She was clutching a stuffed animal, a worn-out toy dog, and sitting on the ground next to Max, who seemed to be comforting her. The little girl looked up at Sophie and smiled. "I found him," she said softly. "He was looking for something, just like me." Sophie knelt down, hugging Max tightly. "You scared me," she whispered into his fur. Max gave her a big wet lick on the face as if to say, "I'm sorry." Sophie's mom bent down to speak with the little girl. "Are you lost, sweetie?" The little girl nodded, tears brimming in her eyes again. "I was trying to find my way home, but I couldn't remember which street it was. Max came up to me and stayed with me. He didn't leave." Sophie's mom smiled warmly. "Well, Max must have known you needed a friend." Together, they helped the little girl find her way back home. Her parents had been worried sick, searching everywhere for her. They were overjoyed to see her safe and sound, with Max proudly by her side. As Sophie and her mom walked home with Max trotting happily between them, Sophie realized something important. Max hadn't run away. He had sensed someone in need, just like Sophie had been earlier that day. He wasn't just her dog. He was a helper, a protector, always ready to be there for someone who needed him. When they got back home, Sophie gave Max an extra long hug. "Thank you for being such a good dog, Max," she whispered. "You're not just my best friend. You're a hero." And from that day forward, Sophie knew that sometimes the ones we love may wander off, not because they're lost, but because they're finding someone else who needs a little help.